Leia Healthcare. It's good to live. Proud sponsor of the Real Health podcast with Carl Henry.
Hello and welcome to Real Health with me, Carl Henry, in association with Leia Healthcare. Folks, this week's show is one of our life lessons episodes with some of Ireland's most famous personalities. And today, I'm really looking forward to it. My guest is Mairead Ronan. She's no stranger to the Irish TV and radio landscape. Mairead has been working hard in the industry for over 18 years. She started her career on the Radio Arty show, hosts Fittest Families, has won Dancing with the Stars in 2019, and now presents her own daily radio show on Today FM. On top of all that, she co-owns a hairstyling equipment business called Faro. Mairead Ronan, how's it going?
My goodness, that's a lovely intro you've given me there. I feel like I'm busier than I feel, actually.
There's plenty going on in life, to say the least. How are things? How's life been during COVID? That's the obvious question to start with. We have to start there.
Life for us has been, I'd say, ups and downs over the last year, Carl, because on one hand, I feel like I'm in no position to complain because both myself and my husband are still working full time. So I'm very aware that that's not the case for so many people. But also, for a huge chunk of the last 12 months, we didn't have childcare. And, you know, I don't want to call my two daughters babies, but they were, when this pandemic kicked off, they were babies. I had a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old, as well as a teenager. But, you know, he's well able to look after himself. And I found lockdown 1 extremely difficult. So I had lots of people in my life loving this kind of, oh my God, this slow pace of life. And one person in my life was my sister. She works in Dublin Airport. After I think about a month of the first month of COVID, she was told, look, you're not going to be working for the next few months. So she was on still a very decent salary. Of that, 80% of her salary was being paid, but she was off 100% of the time. I was put on a pay cut, so I was down 15% of my pay, but I felt like I was working 200% more because I had to still perform like you normally would by doing the radio show, but didn't have that pillar of support, which is our childminder Kay. And she's been with me since I had Dara. Dara's 14 next month. So that pillar of support was taken away from us, yet we were still supposed to perform exactly like we normally would. And I just found that extremely difficult. And yet I felt like we also couldn't complain because people were saying, you're lucky you have your job. But when lockdown 2 came around, we were definitely in a better position and a different routine. And now at this stage, I think like everybody else, we're just fed up. I'm fed up with it all now. I'm kind of tired of being asked to do a little bit more. And I have no more to give. I have no more to give. And then we got COVID. All of us got COVID here in this house, which was a surprise and definitely stressful as well.
Tell us a bit more about that. We will go into your career in a second, but in terms of getting COVID and the whole house got COVID.
Yeah, and all
the
at different
experience
times.
of that and the feelings around that.
I'll be honest, one of the first feelings was a bit of fear. Because like it said, I was going into Dublin city centre every day. I was going to the supermarket. Obviously nothing else was going on in various different lockdowns. We weren't doing anything we weren't supposed to be doing. You know, we didn't have any house party. We don't have a shebeen out the back garden or anything like that. But after Christmas, so the early days of January, and we were able to map exactly where we were. And it was a supermarket or a petrol station. And that is where Louis picked up COVID. And our baby daughter got it. Our 2-year-old daughter got it the same time as him. And he had classic signs of a very bad headache, a temperature, and extremely tired. A tiredness that Louis just had never had before. So he got COVID tested, came back positive. And then we were told, obviously, the rest of the family would have to be tested too. So that's when we picked up. Bonnie had it straight away. I was negative. Dara, my teenager, was negative, and our 4-year-old was negative at that time. However, Eliza then a week later showed up positive. So that every time somebody in the house gets it, you have to restart your clock on your isolation,
day one,
staying at home.
Course,
it's back to day one again. So we were back to day one again when Eliza got it. She didn't really have any symptoms and had nothing to worry about her. She was nothing but like very basic cold, if even any symptoms at all. But Bonnie wasn't well. She was clinging to me like a koala bear. She was basically living on my hip. She wouldn't go to bed without falling asleep on me first. And she was sleeping lots. So that was weird to see a 2-year-old who's so full of energy and never wants to go to bed at bedtime was now falling asleep on the couch for 2.5 to 3 hours and still going to bed at a normal time. So I was freaked out by that. Louis is spending all of his time in bed. Like, I mean, it was weird. It was like I had slipped him sleeping tablets. That's the only way I can describe his behavior. He was sleeping all day, getting up at about 5 p.m., having a bit of food, and then like going back to bed again. And then so myself and Dara, we were like thinking we were completely immune to this whole thing because, you know, we still hadn't got it. And eventually when we got back out into walking the dog and get back into Today FM, I had gone to a supermarket, gone to a petrol station and got an eye test, which I really felt like I needed an eye test, and I booked in an eye test. So those 3 places were the only places I were. And I got COVID, and I got COVID pretty bad, like pretty bad. But when you think about it, like, and I was talking to a friend of mine who her sister is a nurse, and she said, look, if we could see COVID, if it had a color and we could see where it is, we would never leave our house because it is just everywhere. And this would have been, you know, January, February time. So I didn't feel so stupid then, but I felt stupid because it had been in our home. We had gotten rid of it. And somehow I brought it back into our home a second time by doing nothing but getting diesel and going to a supermarket and getting an eye test. So I felt like disappointed and stupid and how did this happen to us again? And then Dara got it, my teenager got it, you know. So it was just awful to be locked back up again for a second time. You know, it really was awful. So we had to do another kind of 2.5 weeks to make sure we were definitely out of it, because did Dara pick it up the same day as me? I don't know. So we waited almost 2.5 weeks. So the beginning of this year for us has been, again, stressful. That key support system of our childminder was not coming to the house, yet I still had to work and do a radio show. It was, and I was sick. I was really, really sick. Obviously, I didn't when I was really sick. I took the bed. They're really good in Today FM. They let me take some time off work. But yeah, just that stress. And I feel fine now, but I definitely don't feel like I'm at the energy levels I would have had before it. I definitely think I'm still operating only at about 80%. I still have probably a little bit to go to get my full energy levels back again. Yeah, but it was awful, but then not as awful as what it's been for other people who have obviously ended up in hospital or have lost a loved one. You know, that didn't happen to us, thank God.
Let's chat career then. Okay, so these episodes are all around life lessons from people who've had careers that people will know in the media and all of that. How did you get into radio? Was radio and TV, were they always the goal? Is that something you always wanted to do? And if so, how did you do it?
I suppose like they were always something I wanted to do. That's definitely being honest. And I remember saying it out loud in second year to Miss Geary, my Irish teacher, when we were talking about careers. And so I would have been maybe 13 or 14 probably at the time. And she told me, you know, Mairead, your Irish isn't good enough to ever get a job in RTE. I was like, ooh, okay, that's the end of that. But, you know, at the time, other places didn't really exist. You know, there was no Today FM. And she was probably right. My Irish wasn't good enough at the time. I'm not sure if you need it anymore, but it was always there. But I don't come from a family of people working in the media or from a broadcasting background. You know, my dad worked in Smurfits and worked in factories. My mum was a waitress and she loved her job in Clontarf Castle. My sisters work in the airport, and like nobody else in the family, from cousins and aunts and uncles, do anything that I've ended up doing. But it was always there. So I ended up doing something that most people do, and it's just ticking boxes on my CAO. And I ended up attempting to do a degree in human resource management, which is just, when I look back, that's my worst nightmare. People coming to me with their problems and me having to try and fix them. Like that's just not, it's just the worst thing in the world. So I did 1 year of that degree, and I sat down and spoke to my parents and said, I can't do this. And my mum says, what do you want to do? And I was nearly afraid to say it I probably was afraid. I didn't say it. I said, I really don't know what I want to do. So I ended up working full time for a year while I figured it all out. And that was just working in Arnott's and having fun and earning money. And but then my mum got really sick, and when she was told she was terminally ill, and the conversation came up again. So I gave up my full-time job when mum got really sick because I wanted to be at home with her, knowing that she only had a couple of months to live. And mum said, Mairead, what is it you're going to do? I feel like, the job you're doing right now is not what you're supposed to be doing. And I said, I really would love to work in media. And she said, okay, well then, why don't you try and do that? So in the January, when mum was really sick, I applied to Ballyfermot College, and they had what seemed like a really good course in media, a 2-year course in media. And I said, I'll give that a go. And you had to go for an interview and all that. And I was called for the interview. I got the letter for the interview the day of my mum's funeral. That was in the post when myself and dad got home. Look, I did that, and I fell completely in love with it. I never missed a day. I handed assignments in early. I was kind of the opposite of how I'd behaved in my previous college course. So I knew I really, really loved this. And you had to get work experience, as you do most of those courses. And it's so tricky to get work experience in the media. And now going forward, it's going to be even trickier for people. So I really feel for them. So I applied to MTV in London, and I did 2 weeks with them. But I got that through a job that I had in a nightclub where we booked DJs from MTV. So I had an in there, and I did 2 weeks there with them, and they worked me to the bone. They were like, here's a free person for 2 weeks. And they got me to do everything. And then I had another 2 weeks in Today FM, and I just adored working there. It was the most fun I've ever had at work. Again, doing everything from posting out prizes to making tea and coffee, but I just loved the buzz that was around the place. And they said to me, look, we're going to keep your name, we'll keep your CV. And I thought they say that to all the girls and boys that come through here, but they did. They called me and they said, look, we have 6 weeks work for you. Can you do it? And Carl, that 6 weeks never ended, really. Never ended, ever. I'm still there. And that is, I'm so embarrassed to say, it was 19 years ago this week. 19 years ago, I did work experience in Today FM.
And you love it. You can tell by listening to this, how you tell the stories, that you thoroughly enjoy what you do.
I do. I love it. And look, I grew up there. I also got that job, like a year after my mum died. And it was definitely helped me with grieving because it was so fun. And it was, it was so exciting. I was working on these live radio shows and all these cool guests were coming in, and I got free tickets to gigs. I mean, it was like, do you want to go see Prince tonight? I'm like, you're kidding me, for free. It was all these things were happening, and it was kind of exactly what I needed in my life at the time. And it was wonderful. And like some of my bestest friends and best friendships were formed during that time too. So it was amazing until, I suppose, it wasn't. In 20, God, what year is it? 2017, I decided to leave because I realized I had never really worked anywhere else. And I felt I had kind of hit this, I was a producer of the Ian Dempsey Breakfast Show. I had worked as a producer with Ray Darcy. I had been on air, I'd been off air. I'd kind of done it all. I'd never had my own show, but I thought, I don't know, I'd love to just try something else. And I don't know what that something else is. And I just had my second child, and I said, I'm gonna jump, and I don't know if I have a parachute or not. So my husband was like, go do it. Look, just go freelance. I had never done freelance work before. And I'm really, really, really glad I did that. I made that decision because that's when other things came my way, like Dancing with the Stars, which I could never have done had I had a full-time job. It's an impossible show to take on, or challenge to take on, if you have a full-time job as well. You can't do it.
Joy, you've naturally gone there, because I was going to go there at some stage anyway. Chat us through the training regime for that. We have interviewed some of the contestants before, about a year and a half ago. It is hardcore.
It's like, I have done things like half marathons, and I did before, like this 27-kilometer race that I did with Louis before, like down in Killarney, and I really trained for that, and I wanted to do a good job of it. But Dancing with the Stars, you hurt in places that you didn't even know you either had a muscle or had a bone or had a tendon, or like, and people don't realize, and I didn't realize, like doing something like a slow waltz, which, you know, you're gently moving around the floor and you're kind of just, you know, you've got one arm out and the other arm is on your partner, hooked onto your partner. You're thinking that couldn't possibly cause any pain. But what people don't see, under your dress, you're permanently almost squatting, like you're putting a bit of weight into your thighs, and that's where you have to hold yourself in your thighs. And if you were doing that for somewhere between 9 and 10 hours a day for 6 days straight, over and over and over again, and it just causes so much pain but so much tone. I mean, I was going into that where my fitness was on the floor. When I got the phone call, I actually looked at an old phone recently, and the text message and phone calls records were still there from Larry Bass. And so looking at the dates, Bonnie was 6 weeks old when I got the phone call to say, would I be interested in doing it? And then when I eventually, you know, signed on to do it, Bonnie was about 3 months old.
Wow.
And I started working with John when she was about 3.5 to like touching 4 months old, fully breastfeeding her. You know, on 4 months after my third baby, I was my biggest and heaviest having her, even though she was my lightest baby. It was a massive physical challenge. Never mind the whole getting your head around, I'm dancing live on TV, and if I slip and fall, you know, everyone's going to see. So there's a whole mental side of Dancing with the Stars, but the physical side of it, the first show I did, it was on the 5th month to the day after I had Bonnie. And so it was extremely tough. Like, and I was not at the races at all from anyone. No one thought I had any chance, me included. I didn't think I had any chance either. But to go from that to winning was it was a really big deal for me. It was a big deal.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how did it feel to win the show?
It felt huge. And like, I know people who don't like watch the show or have no interest in the show go, a big deal. Okay, so you won basically a reality TV dancing show, but you put so much physical effort into each week. It's like trying to learn a new language every week for 12 weeks, because you know, you've learned a waltz 1 week and then next week you're given like a jive, and they're completely different with completely different rules. And although you're on your toes this week, it's all in the ball this week. And you're like, hang on a second, last week you were telling me I had to be all on my toes, and now you're telling me I have to be somewhere else. And so it's like trying to learn a total new language every single week. But I worked really, really hard, and I was able to do it because I had the support of Louis. Like my husband, he took all of the slack at home for the entire journey is 16 weeks, because it's 4 weeks before the first show and then 12 weeks while it's on TV. So for those 4 months, like Louis did everything. I don't think I put a wash on. I never went to the supermarket. I cooked very few dinners. I used to train with John at 7 a.m. So I would have like expressed milk, left it there. He would feed it to Bonnie. I would be already dancing before she had woken up. Like it was a mad time. But I did it because I had that support. And that's the thing, like going back to COVID, like when you lose that pillar of support that you have built your whole life around, you can't perform. And I mean perform and do your job. Like myself and Louis found it very hard to do our jobs without Kay, our childminder here. I couldn't have done Dancing with the Stars without Louis and Kay. You know, they were the two people that kind of held everything up here at home. So you know, I've good support structures. That's why I'm able to do what I do, I suppose.
Yeah, well, hard working is something that jumps out straight away. That's obviously a trait that you have. Is competitiveness another trait?
Competitiveness has never really been there. And I genuinely think that, like, I have often given out to myself a little bit by saying, oh, if you were a bit more competitive, would your career be further along? And that's a conversation I definitely had with myself in my mid-30s, when I felt like, oh, why did I not try push harder to do this? Or oh, she's further on in her career because she does that. And I definitely did a lot of comparing and questioned myself about not having that competitive streak in me. I definitely do have a hardworking streak. And then when Dancing with the Stars came along, I thought, oh God, no, I don't want to be eliminated this week. So maybe there is somewhere deep down in me, there is a competitive streak. Because I don't think they necessarily go hand in hand with being, if you're a hard worker, it doesn't mean that you are competitive. So Dancing with the Stars definitely brought it out a little bit in me. But hard work comes from my mum and dad. I mean, I was always, as soon as I turned 16, I was told I had to go and get a job. I had to have a Saturday job. That's just what you have to do. My mother always worked. My dad's still working. Oh, okay, not officially, but like he's still, he's working, like, fixing locks on doors for people and pulling down a trellis on a wall that his neighbor didn't want on the wall anymore. And my dad's 83. Like, so it's just, hard work is there in the family.
How do you deal with the comparison pressure then? And I think people listening in, I think we all do that, right? We all scroll through Instagram or see someone in the paper like, oh, I could be like that, or I'm not like that, and beat ourselves up for it. And there's a whole rhetoric around that. Being in the public eye, presumably that's almost increased. How do you handle that, or how do you deal with that?
I definitely struggled with it in my mid-30s. I'll be honest with you. Like I just said, I was looking at other people, both male and female. I wasn't just looking at women going, oh, why don't I have that job? Or why did I not get asked to go for that job? But in my mid-30s, I looked at both men and women in my kind of age bracket. And I would have thought, God, yeah, she's competitive and that's why she's got that. And she has hustled and I haven't been a hustler. I haven't done the things that she's done, and why didn't I do them? But it's just not in my personality. Now I'm 40 and I definitely don't look at it like that. I don't look at my Instagram following going, why don't I have more? I kind of know why I don't have more, because I don't spend enough time on it. My following is very engaging with me, but I can't put that pressure on myself to post 4 times a week or do a reel, because I have 3 kids. I have a job that I need to look after, which is a national radio show at lunchtime every day. I also have a business that I really love and hate at the same time. It's like the weirdest thing ever to have a love-hate relationship with a small business that you run. So like I can answer all those questions now in my head. If I go, why don't I have that? I know why I don't have that. I don't have that because I have other things and I need to devote my time to the other things. So I have a very strong pecking order list in my life. I look after that list, and anything else is a bonus or a snack. Anything else, yeah, that's what they are. I need to know what's important. And my mid-30s, I didn't, and now I definitely do.
Yeah, so as we mature through life, you get that priority list straight in your head in terms of what is important, and presumably learning to say no a little bit more comes with that. And I think we've all learned a bit of that over the last year or so.
Absolutely. And I made that, Carl, I made that my New Year's resolution. I talked about it in I don't know, maybe it was before, maybe it was December, and it could have been in the new year because it's all just a blur now. But I said that was my New Year's resolution for 2021, was to say no more often. And a lot of people are making, 2021 was the year of yes. I'm like, no, it's definitely the year of no. And like, Carl, to give you an example, like when we were organizing to do this podcast, it was a date was flagged with me, and I looked at the date and I said, okay, I've got the show on that day. And then I have this online training thing that I have to do for work. And then I could squeeze it in at, 4:00. And I went, no, I'm tying myself in knots. So I said, I can't do that date, but I can do this one. But me last year would have tied myself up in 14 knots to try and do the radio show, get dinner done, do the online training and the podcast with you. And since I've done it, since I'm saying no more often, I'm far more organized, I'm far more calm, and I'm probably getting more done, but in a different way.
You mentioned calmness there. Let's take it. What calms you down? How do you switch off? Because for what you do, you're on. So whether it is radio, whether it is emceeing, or whether it is TV presenting, you're on and you're in kind of on work mode. How do you flip that on its head? How do you calm down? How does downtime look to you?
I'm probably going to be laughed at for this. Downtime is 2 things. One, it is actually switching off, unplugging. So not scrolling through Instagram. Oh, look at that. Look what she's done. Look, oh, wow. Look what he's done. It's just stop doing that. I love Instagram. I absolutely love it. But just, it can suck the life out of your day. It can suck your energy. It can suck your positivity, even though people say it's a very positive platform. But again, you can fall into that, comparing yourself to, God, she got a 5K run in today. I haven't done one in 4 days. I'm a complete failure. So I have a really, really healthy relationship with Instagram now. So I love it, and it's gone and it's away. So for me, calmness is, and it's cleaning my house. I'm sorry. It is my mindfulness. I have tried yoga before. It doesn't do it for me. I prefer more like sweaty exercise. And people talk about mindfulness. And cleaning my house is my mindfulness. I love sticking on my headphones, listening to a podcast, listening to the radio, and going around with my Hoover or like cleaning a bathroom. And I don't apologize for it anymore. Like people go on about Mrs. Hinch. I was hinching before Mrs. Hinch in that and it's not about a clean, antibacterial house. I love a tidy house. That's what I mean. I love having things organized because there's 3 kids here. There's a dog here. Myself and Louis work full time. I love when somebody says, "Where is my ... I know where it is. And that keeps me calm. It keeps a very calm household. Everywhere bar the kids' playroom. Like that is an absolute tip. Like that's a mess. And that always stays.
It'll be very strange. Anyone who has a tidy kids' playroom, there's something wrong somewhere, like in all
bizarre.
fairness.
Yes, it is bizarre. Odd. But I do like having like a tidy knicker drawer and tidy toiletries and the towels folded because it just keeps order on the house. And when there's order in the house, I feel like I have order in my head. And that's what keeps the whole thing calm.
I was chatting to Aggie McKenzie last week, and we actually have her on the podcast in a couple of weeks' time. She was epic, absolutely epic. And it is very much around that. Well, I was saying to her, I remember listening to the Ray D'Arcy show when you guys, you brought her to Ireland. You were the first to have her on, and she was on like once a week on doing these Q&As. And I remember listening to it at the time in the car, being blown away by it. So we had her on for a corporate session last week. She was incredible, but it's all around that mindfulness thing of just switching off, not having, not scrolling, just doing something mindful. And whether it's cleaning or folding or ironing or whatever, it's the escapism from your day.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I don't want people to think I'm a clean freak. I'm not going around with like bottles of bleach everywhere. It's more tidying. And because there is 5 people and a dog in the house, like there's always things that need to be put away. And if I say, okay, I'm going to put the girls in the bath, the door's open, Louis keeping an eye on them there, and I'm just going to go put my headphones on. I'm just going to change their bedclothes, and I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do that. And I fully switch off. And I find, after that hour or sometimes 40 minutes, I'm completely chilled. And I've said it, cleaning is my mindfulness. I love doing it. I also think my family do too, but I need to get them more involved before it becomes a problem.
Final question. If you were to give advice to your kind of 20-year-old self, on reflection of what you've been through in the last kind of 20 years in terms of work, in terms of all the opportunities that you've taken, all the work that you've done, all the things you've presented, looking back now, what advice would you give yourself?
It's like probably a cliche one, but it would be to back myself more because like say you mentioned the Ray D'Arcy show there, back when the Ray D'Arcy show was on Today FM. I mean, that was brilliant, but that was a grind. I mean, that was hamster wheel stuff. Like it was 15 hours of live radio, really tiny team, like 3 hours a day to generate content. It was a grind, but I would love to tell myself to back then, back myself a little bit more. Trust your gut. I mean, jeepers, that is the thing that it steers you right all the time. And mistakes that I have made, I felt they were a mistake as I was making them, because in my gut I felt like they were a mistake. So trust your gut, back yourself a little bit more, and don't stay working on the one thing for too long. That's definitely advice I would give to my younger self. If I could go back in time, it would definitely be that.
Mairead Ronan, it's been great I've been looking forward to this for a long time, but we finally managed to get it sorted and get the interview put together, which is great. Obviously, people can listen in to you on Today FM. Tell us a little bit more about Faro and where people can check that out too.
Yeah, we're available. We're an Irish company, and we are faro.ie. We are blow drying brushes, but that you can use at home. So I'll give you like a salon blow dry, but from your own home. And we're also on sale in Peter Mark now, which was that took a few years to get over the line, Carl. I'm not going to lie, but we're there now. Delighted.
But with hard work, as ever, you make things happen, which doesn't surprise me. Mairead Ronan, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Real Health. Folks, that's it for another show. We really hope you enjoyed today's ep. As ever, you know where we are. at Carl Henry PT on Twitter and on Instagram, realhealthindependent.ie. Hopefully you enjoyed our chat. If you did, don't forget to rate and review. And a very big welcome to our new team, to Dara and to Mary. This is our very first episode. We've broken the ice and we're hitting the ground running. So it's great to have them on board. And we've lots more lovely episodes coming for you in the coming weeks and months. Have an amazing week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and we'll see you very, very soon.
Leia Healthcare. It's good to live. Proud sponsor of the Real Health podcast with Carl Henry.